Welcome back once again to episode 4 of Terminal Vocation. I'm your host, Deacon Mark.
And I'm Erin Voorhees.
And we're excited today to talk about the other end of the spectrum. So last week we talked about fighting, and as exciting as that is, it's sort of exciting in all the wrong ways. So we're going to go to the other end of the spectrum, talk about, is this love that I'm feeling, as Whitesnake once said.
These are very old songs. You might have to Google that for our audience who is much younger.
How do I know when it's time to take that next step in my relationship, to go from just talking to going steady, to saying those 3 words, I love you, to getting engaged? So all those are, of course, big steps and big decisions to be made. So we'll talk a little bit about, how do we know when the time is right? But first, this just in. So an interesting article this week. Amazon always loves to be in the news. Jeff Bezos always has something new up his sleeve in terms of business models and that sort of thing. So the latest this week is they have announced an Amazon Instant. I'm getting that name wrong, but AP News article said that there is
ultra fast.
Ultra fast. Is that what it's called? Or Amazon Ultra or Ultra Fast? So 30-minute deliveries on small items. So saying that they're going to create small distribution centers about the size of a CVS that would have all the things that you could go and get at a CVS, like over-the-counter medications. What were some of the other things? Small groceries,
playing
diapers.
Cards.
Playing cards.
I thought that was a funny thing.
I mean, I've seen playing cards in a CVS, but if I was writing an article, I don't know that would have been one of my go-to items that I would list.
So what's better than that? Like, you don't even have to go anywhere. You stay in your house and get everything you need in an instant.
Right. I'm desperate to play solitaire, and I need a deck of cards.
That's so much more accurate than we want to admit.
I think what's interesting about this, for us, of course, as always, is, setting aside the business model and the implications therein, right? But what is this like? And I'm going to kind of lean on you, because in our family, you stayed home. You had the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old that suddenly someone's got a runny nose and you realize we're out of Sudafed or whatever
it is.
Right? And you've got to put those kids into car seats and drive across town and then deal with snotty kids in the shopping cart. And I don't know quite what your take is on this, but I feel like, as challenging as that is, every time we try and take the easy way out of something, there's an implication. And so something is lost by not doing the hard thing, yeah?
Well, so I think there are times when, you need medicine quickly, you need something quickly. So I'm going to set aside, I could imagine if you'd been traveling and I had 2 kids throwing up, like some anti-nausea medicine or ginger ale or something like that, I could see.
Sure.
I could absolutely see using the service. Here's where I think it gets a little weird. And I see this a little bit at the middle school sometimes. If you don't ever, or if you rarely take your children out in public, so I'm just talking about the regular errands that we all need to run. If you never run to the CVS or the Walgreens or whatever, how do your kids have this chance to experience, the dreaded candy aisle or the candy at the checkout where we're like, we're not getting candy today. And then you have this chance to show that your word is your bond and we will not be walking out with any additional sugar today, and that's a huge lesson. Or what I experience at the middle school a lot is a child walks up to me. It's the first time I've seen them today, and they say, I don't owe you that book. I'm sorry, I have no idea. We have 17,000 books in the library. I have no idea what you're talking about.
and 1,000 students.
Right. 1,000 students. And it is because they've gotten some email that said they're overdue. And those niceties of, hi, Mrs. Voorhees, I have a problem. Can you help me?
Right.
That all gets skipped. And in fact, they don't even tell me the book. It's that book, like I should know. And there's a learning, and that's fine. That's a middle school thing. I'm happy to educate that, and I do. But there is a learning that happens by watching parents use cash registers and pay for things, select products. There's a lot that happens in the day of a life of a parent that stays home, who, is taking kids into places, behavior, finances, shopping, the economies of shopping.
I like what you were saying at the beginning too about like how do they ever learn that no, we're not doing that today. How do they come to the realization that when mom says this, when dad says that they're not going to back off, that no amount of fighting, whining, crying that I'm going to do is going to change that. And that's an important thing just in its own right. I mean, we could do a series of episodes on that element of discipline and word is your bond, as you put it. But I think that's extremely important. I think also kind of figuring out how to control our impulses, how the kids can control their impulses. We talked about that a little bit. So I think all those things are important, and then just the socialization, with people, with shopkeepers.
I think, there's certainly been more than one time where I've walked out of the store with a screaming child, sometimes with our groceries and sometimes without. But it also shows other people what family life is like in a good and a bad way. Like, that's difficult. When I see that happen with other parents, I say a little prayer for them because I've been there. But also we should be tolerant. The society should be tolerant of children. And so there's a learning curve, and there's a way to tolerate them that works best when the parents are laying down the rules that are clear. And then you have a meltdown and people accommodate that. I was thinking of a time I was getting a haircut, which was always tough to do with the twins. And one of our twins grabbed something from the other and was being cruel. And I could see this all in the mirror. So I stopped the haircut, like half my hair is cut, half of it is not. I come over and I discipline. I take the toy away from the offending child and give it back and put them in a little timeout. And they cried for the rest of the haircut. And God bless, these older women were sitting there. And as we left, I just said, I'm so sorry you had to listen to him cry like that. It wasn't fair. And they said, no, we can handle some crying. That was exactly what should have happened. He took that toy from her. And it was this moment of solidarity of like, oh my gosh, they weren't mad about him crying. Right. They were happy that I had disciplined.
And I think that's important. Like, reasonable people expect that kids might get upset and deal with things. The problem comes when they don't feel like the parents are doing anything about it. And I know, like, if I'm out and I see parents where I feel like they're doing a good job, I try and say, good job, Mom, good job, Dad. That's a hard situation. You're doing a good job. And some of them probably don't care. One more random
trying
stranger,
to get home.
Said anything, but I just feel like, they need to hear, like, you're doing what you need to do. And it's so hard.
Yeah, no, for every comment that you have, that's nice. I'm sure we could all find stories of people who've been cruel, but I do think by constantly shipping stuff to our house, kids are losing this idea of interaction in society. Yeah.
Well, let's jump in to our topic about Is This Love? Right?
Such a good song.
It's one of Whitesnake's 2 greatest hits. That was one of those albums that I had, like, on cassette tape.
Nice.
And I remember, thinking this is a great album. And I've had a couple of those where I've gone back on Spotify and listened to them later on. I was like,
you were wrong.
It's not a great album, but I digress. So okay. So like I said, we're going to talk about this idea of, is this love? Or, to quote maybe another song, Whitney Houston, how will I know? And so we're not going to be able to give anybody a quantitative answer. 3 dates, 5 dates, 7 dates, right? So Sorry to disappoint everybody. If you were looking for that metric, it would be nice if things were that easy. But even though things are maybe not as cut and dry or as consistent, right? Because every relationship is unique. I think there's signs that we can see if we're reading the tea leaves right and that sort of thing. That the next step kind of makes sense when we see X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. And so the first big step, of course, is just deciding to ask somebody out, right? That's sort of, I guess, the first big leap. I think that one kind of takes care of itself. You've got a basic level of, there's nothing. And I know there could be, again, a whole series of episodes on just do it, just ask them out, it's just coffee, all that sort of thing. But let's go really into the big decisions within the relationship itself. So, we've been talking. We've had, 1, 2, 3, 5 dates, something like that. How do we decide that it's time to move to something exclusive? So I'm going to make an analogy, and then I'm going to obnoxiously carry it through all the other scenarios that we talked to.
Oh, good.
So I think the analogy here is a little bit like interviewing for a job, right? So I think talking is kind of the job interview phase.
Okay.
So, you've got the first date, very basic HR screen, right? We're just trying to see, do we want this person to move on to actually talk to the hiring manager? And then, we've got a couple more dates with different levels of the team and, bosses and that sort of thing. But I think ultimately what we're trying to decide here is, do I think I want to hire this person? Mm-hmm. And of course, and then as we transfer that over to dating, do I want to be exclusive? Is this the person I want to have the job? Mm-hmm. And of course, recognizing that this is at-will employment. We're not committing to anything. We're not putting a ring on it at this stage.
Sure.
But that I think I'm better off committing to this person than not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've seen enough about this person to say, okay, like I want to just date them and learn a little bit more about them.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a good analogy so far.
So far. Yeah, I'll strain it very soon. Now, I think two things about being interviewed, and I've been interviewed a lot, for different jobs as I've looked over the years. I think you need to find that balance between enough interviews that you've gained information about the person, not so many that person loses interest or thinks that you're just stringing them along and then they find a better job with somebody else.
So we just keep dating and dating and dating, but not committing to each other. Yeah. Right.
So okay. I think we have to, find that balance in there somewhere. It's, if you're at, first date, it's probably early. Mm-hmm. If you're at 6 months, it's probably gone on an awful long time. So, somewhere between those two, that's a pretty broad range, but obviously depends on
it depends on circumstance.
You're going out and what you're doing. So that's, I think, that first step. Not too difficult a step to take, although maybe some people take it too soon, maybe some people take it too late, right? So trying to.
But it automatically, I think you referred to this in a previous episode, that it's the DTR. Like somebody's got to define the relationship. So there's an inherent risk there in whoever says,
yeah,
I'd like us to not see anybody else, because the other person could say, no, I'm just in this for the coffee, like really not interested, right?
Or I didn't know we were dating. Are we?
Right.
I thought that we were just going out as friends.
Right.
Yeah. So I suppose either side can happen. So let's take that next big leap, and man, this one is, the Indiana Jones leap of faith into the chasm, saying I love you for the first time.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it's important enough that there's been no less than 5 million sitcom episodes written about the failure to get the I love you back, right?
Oh, yes. But I feel like it's kind of unlikely that two of you are going to be on exactly the same page at the same time. So, because I think with us, I knew and was willing to say that I loved you before you were. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you were, I can't even remember how this conversation went, but I felt like, okay, well, I'm here and my feelings exist independently. I do love him. It doesn't matter how he feels about me.
Right.
But however we handled it, I felt like you were like, okay, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. Right? Like,
yeah, I think I remember you saying something like, well, I know how I feel. And you didn't say it.
That's it.
But there was almost this like hint that like,
okay, I'm
don't
clear.
worry, you know, don't be scared to say it because of this, but not forcing me to say it.
That sounds right.
So I think it was something like that. And, you know, we were in different stages in terms of coming out of previous relationships. And I had been in a long relationship where I think that's one of the things that can throw this off, right? Is, well, I thought that was love. This is different than that. Maybe in some ways better than, but I said it then, and obviously I was wrong, which you weren't necessarily wrong.
No.
There were feelings there, but I think we can sort of get confused when a relationship breaks up, that it means, oh, I wasn't really in love. Well, no,
You probably were. Yeah.
you probably were. It just wasn't the summit of Mount Love, if you will, in terms of being the end all be all.
Well, and there's
forever.
so much more than love that has to line up, but that's a whole nother episode as well. It's not just, love's not just enough, but okay.
So let's continue my analogy here for a second, right? So you've been hired, you're in the going steady or the dating phase, or in the analogy, you've been hired. I think the I love you is sort of like that first performance review where this person is amazing. That they're getting the, 5 out of 5 superior performance rating,
Good.
which we can't give to everybody, right? We got to follow the bell curve.
This is a business major talking to an English major, and there's been Shakespearean sonnets written, but yes, let's reduce this to, yes, okay. Okay, I'm tracking the analogy.
Okay.
Yes,
right,
I'm with you. It makes sense.
Good. But I think the other thing that can happen here, we hear, and for those of us who are Catholic, maybe we've heard, homilies about, 1 Corinthians and different types of love, and love is this and love is that, and we hear, love is an action, not a feeling, and all that is true to some degree, but there is a feeling of love, there is a feeling of warmth,
sure.
And so I think it's okay, in my opinion, that the I love you that happens in the early stages of dating is probably not perfect marital self-gift kind of agape love.
Oh, sure.
It is a feeling.
Yeah.
But I think we need to make sure that it's not the feeling of infatuation that we have after first or second date, first kiss or whatever. Like, there's a falseness to that kind of desire or infatuation that isn't really love.
So it has gravitas, but of course we're not at a committed, that grows in time and that grows with practice and discipline and being nice to someone when you're cranky and trying to explain that, not being, that all comes, that the action of love comes over time, I think.
Yeah, it does come over time. Or the desire to do something for somebody else. To move beyond just desiring them because of the way they make you feel to desiring to make them feel a certain way. And there's a transition from one to the other. I think, and you mentioned dealing with someone when you're cranky. I kind of think that a good measuring stick for some of this is, how do you feel about that person after the first disagreement?
Oh, yeah.
After the first fight, right? Because anything before that is, everything is sunshine lollipops.
He's wonderful.
But once we've had a disagreement about something, then the bubble's been burst in terms of that person's perfection. But I still want to be with them rather than anybody else. I still think they're a 5 out of 5. I still think,
Right.
At that point, then I know that those feelings are in spite of whatever disagreement we have. And so there's something of substance there beyond infatuation.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's very revealing. I'm not going to harp on the last episode, but figuring out how someone fights. And even if both of you do it, I'm going to say quote unquote wrong, or maybe not so healthily, but if you're willing to say, okay, here's what we should have done, or I shouldn't have said this, and trying to have those discussions to move along. Anyway, we spent a whole episode on that. But yeah, I think that's right. I think there has to be some kind of disagreement, and you really have to see this person maybe under stress or in different environments to know what they're really like.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sort of variety of things is really important. So again, timing, I don't think we can say anything definitive around timing other than kind of looking for those sort of milestones or markers within the relationship itself. All right, last big hurdle we're going to talk about today. Am I ready to put a ring on it?
Quit saying it. Am I ready to buy a ring for the gal I love?
Sorry. So for those who don't know me like my wife does, my life, if you speak to me for more than 10 minutes, I will probably I will either start singing a song about something that has just been said or quoting a late 80s Saturday Night Live sketch.
It's true. I knew what you meant.
So I was going with Beyonce.
Okay, I like Beyonce. No, that's good. I know what you meant. So yeah, I think that is probably the next big hurdle in marital life for both, like somehow getting on that same page, because you as a guy don't want to pop the question and her just be like, wait, what? Like, I didn't think we were at that point.
Right.
And me as the woman, I don't want to be waiting around forever. And like at some point I do, if I want to get married, is that going to happen here? Or do I need to move on to somebody else who's more willing to commit?
Right.
Or again, too soon, just not feeling like we're at that stage yet. Yeah. That's kind of a delicate balance to walk.
Yeah, I think this was, as the guy, the person who's typically asking, I wanted it to be a surprise while never being surprised at the answer.
Yeah, right.
That's the last thing you want is oh, that's cute.
You'll have to take this back. Yeah.
What's the return policy? So, yeah, I think that was always, the challenge. So, maybe just draw from that analogy one last time. But I think if you're the business owner and you've hired this person and you've realized everything about my business needs them, then I want to offer them 50% of the business. I want to make them a full partner.
Yes.
In the business, right? I'm gonna, no hostile takeover. Nobody has 51%. Right? But
yes,
I want to share every aspect of running this business with you.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I know. I think
Isn't that romantic?
I can't wait to see like a spreadsheet or something. I keep waiting for that to come out. No, but I think that's right. Is you both have decided and somehow hopefully communicated to each other that, we can go forward. But that probably means, I would think probably before you were engaged, that you're having some conversations about family and do you want kids and where do you want to live? And, you've had some kind of conversations about what the future looks like at this point.
Yeah. And I think we'll, in a future episode, talk about some of those topics that need to be discussed in greater detail during, engagement and prior to. But I think it's all the same topics that you should have a basic idea that you're on the same page with this person, right? We've talked a little bit about kids and that we want them, and that we think we want to raise them this way, in the church, and
are both
we'd
people
like one of the parents to to be able to stay home with the kids and to do travel sports or not do travel sports or private school or public school, or to have had maybe some of those conversations, but maybe not all.
And religion probably being a really important one. Is what does religion look like in your new family,
even just between the two of us, and then when the kids come about, have I met her parents? Has she met my parents?
Yeah.
And do we get along?
Yeah, because you're not just marrying that person. You really do get, in most instances, you get the whole family.
Yeah.
And the culture of that family.
Right.
So, yeah.
Which, doesn't mean that everybody's going to love their in-laws or that that's an absolute prohibition in terms of a marriage. But it is a consideration.
Sure.
Right. And if there is acrimony there, then we're going to need to figure out how we're going to handle that.
How we're going to deal with that,
going forward. Are we going to be able to resolve that, or are we going to mitigate it with other controls, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's conversations about the big rocks, broadly speaking, and then we can iron out some of the details.
Oh, sorry.
Go through the escrow period of the sale.
When you said big rocks, I thought you meant diamonds. But you're talking about the analogy of a jar where you put the big rocks in first and then you fill. Okay.
Yes.
Then you fill it in with gravel and things and it fills the jar.
Yeah.
I understand. I went in a different direction. I'm going to harp back on the risk factor. And I think from some of our kids and our kids' friends that we've talked to, like taking those risks, even to ask people out or to move the relationship along and things, is difficult it's difficult for anybody. I think some of the stories I've heard, it seems like it's harder for this generation of young people to take some of those risks, or maybe the societal structures for that aren't as in place as they were. Mm-hmm. But I think the bottom line with all of these is, yeah, you're going to risk and you may get hurt, but it will not end you. Right? I mean, like it is.
And, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, breakups and things that don't go right prepare us for things that do go right in the future.
Sure. All the cliches, right? That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Right.
Like so much of our early dating experiences prepare us for who we end up with, how we end up with them, how we are in that relationship with them. And so I think it's all important. I don't regret any of my relationships before we met.
Of course, yeah.
Because they kind of, shaped and prepared me for the relationship that we would have.
And I will say it's good to have friends. It's good to have guy friends and girlfriends, to come home and have some ice cream with when you've had a bad date or somebody's broken up with you or you have to break up with this guy because things aren't a match. I mean, needing that community support for the risks that you do take.
Yeah.
We can just never wrap ourselves in bubble wrap and prevent all that from happening.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to go slightly off script here, but let's just dive into maybe one last aspect of all of these decisions, because traditionally in a lot of relationships, these things kind of fall on the guy to kind of push things forward, to take some of these first steps. And I think there's something that is kind of good about that, in that I think guys can tend to be lazy about relationships if they don't have to push it forward. Right? Like they can just, kind of let the woman make the decisions and decide where things are going and get contented, and then not really treat the woman the way she should be treated. But that can put the female, put the girl, the woman in a little bit of a passenger seat kind of scenario where she doesn't feel as in control. How do you see that, or how do you see some of these decisions, and how would you manage that?
I think many of the early dating failures that I had, sometimes I took too active a role, and this is speaking for me. Other people operate differently. But one of the things that I realized that I wanted to be pursued.
Yeah.
And I was often the pursuer, and it just left me feeling very empty, and it was not satisfying. And so I really had to do some deep thinking and change how I dated. And you're right, you're in this passenger role, but I think I would say you're really in the observer role of watching the man you're dating and saying, okay, did I like do I like where he's going? What is he looking at for careers? Do I want to be married to a police officer? Do I want to be married to an accountant? Where's my level of risk? That type of thing. And that's nothing against the guy. That's me. So I think that observation was important. In terms of moving the relationship along, I wanted that person to want to date me exclusively, to want to say I love you, to want to marry me. I already mentioned that the I love you thing I wouldn't have said it went exactly like, I would have loved for you to say it first. And I guess you said it first, but it was clear that I was a little farther along there. But I think at that point I just had enough trust in the relationship to say, okay, I like where this is going. I think we all just need some to arrive places at our own time. Yeah. So I think I was able to trust in that moment. Somebody once told me a woman never puts her hand in it never puts her hand in a man's where she doesn't know where he is going. Mm-hmm. So it is the trust in, I like what you're doing. I like where you're going. Yes, I will come along. And that's where my choice happens is, I choose this person, or, oh, no, I don't choose that. I don't want to go with this guy. I don't like what he's doing, right. Or I don't trust what he's about. So that's how I see it. Did I answer your question?
No, I think absolutely. I think that speaks to it well. And, that you, sometimes the guy is the one asking you to dance, but you have the opportunity to say no. Mm-hmm. you know, or to, in terms of this, to say yes to the first dance and maybe not to the second one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's, opportunities like that. But I think that's what I was getting at in terms of like the control thing too, is I think it's good and healthy for men sometimes to pursue. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where sometimes that passivity, if they're not put into a position where they have to pursue, can occur and can be a problem in the relationship, because they can take the woman for granted if they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that.
Well, if you are in agreement, or if you're perhaps especially not in agreement, let us know about it. You can always get in touch with us at terminalvocation@gmail.com. Send us ideas for topics, or maybe just agree and disagree and tell us we're wrong. That's great. It's good fodder for future conversation. You've been listening to Terminal Vocation, a VoFam production. I'm Deacon Mark, along with my wife and co-host Erin. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you.